Matt Muilenburg from Impel, as Glenn introduced. It's a pleasure to be here. 30 years now in this industry. It makes me feel old to think about that. I never thought I was going to work in the automotive vertical, and then I rolled into a company called the Cobalt Group back in 1997 and never looked back. I thought it was a short-term gig. It turned into 17 years. I did everything in that company. Started in sales, went to service, did corp dev, did M&A, did product, did marketing. Every piece of the business. It was a great foundation to learn this industry and to get to know so many of you and so many of the dealers. It's fun to be here today. When I left Cobalt, I moved into the AI space working with MarchX and call data. And in the span of the last 10 years, watching how this technology has changed and the impact that it's having on what we do every day, it's just astonishing. It blows my mind, and in fact, it makes me a little scared for what the future's like, because if things are changing so fast, when does the human lose the capacity to keep up with the change? So a little existential question for y'all to think about when you leave the room. We're not going to talk about that at all today. Here's where I want to start. When I think about what's going on in the industry today, it was just mentioned, I don't want another vendor. I need orchestration. I need to have a single view of my customer. We've all been chasing that now for 30 years. I remember when the first lead management systems came out, and then the CRM tools that came out after that. And the promise was we were going to make this a better experience. We were going to change the ratio of salespeople to vehicles sold 10 to 1. It was going to get better. Well, we're 30 years into this, and I look at it, and I talk to dealers all the time, and the best dealer I talk to has a vehicle to salesperson ratio of 15 to 1, and almost everybody's still at 10 to 1. And that says to me that all of this technology that we've deployed has a purpose, and there's a reason we bought it, but it's not doing what we thought it was going to do. And I don't know if that's behaviors in the store, and we are just comfortable always having enough salespeople so that our ratio stays 10 to 1, or if there's just, in fact, structural changes that we need to make to be able to maximize what we're doing. I actually think it's those structural changes. I don't think it's about getting rid of vendors. Of course, there are vendors that will go away. I certainly don't think it's about a single source for all of the applications and tools inside your stores. Does anybody believe that's ever going to happen? Not a single hand, right? How long has ADP been chasing that, or I guess CDK these days? It's not going to happen. It's hubris to think that one entity will bring all of these applications together in a single place, and you're going to have a single throat to choke, and you're going to be able to do it all. But it's not unreasonable to think that you can bring much better orchestration to those software applications by using silicone-based employees, the AI, to do that work for you. And I think that's the verge of the transformation that we're actually on here. Yes, you'll eliminate some vendors. There are things that will go away or won't be necessary anymore. There are pieces you won't need. But the reality is you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 vendors in your stores doing things because they provide a piece of that life cycle that matters. And the real problem is that your people don't use those tools very well because there's too many of them and it's too much for the human to think about. And so you buy it and you install it and you use it for a little while, and then it fades into the background and it just sort of sustains itself and it does its thing. And that's the problem. That fundamentally is the problem. That's what AI has the potential to solve for us. I like the closing comment from Noah, which said it wasn't about working around, or maybe it was Tess that said it wasn't about working around or doing better than. It was about helping. It's about supporting. I look at the AI as a silicone employee, as a first-class citizen, as an executive assistant to help the people that are inside the dealership. And that's what we really need to get to and understand. Tess was right when she said people don't think about sales and service. It isn't two different transactions. The consumer thinks about your dealership. And the experience they have at every touch point in that dealership defines who your brand is. And the thing we need to chase and the thing we need to change is how do we make that the best experience possible? And we've talked about it again for 30 years. I deployed CRM systems with the promise that we were going to have one-to-one marketing communication with those consumers. But you know what? In that sort of structured data way, the best you can do is sort of one-to-many communications or pretty milquetoast communications. Even AI, if you wind back 4 years ago and look at the quality of the conversations that Impel's AI was producing in the marketplace, they were astonishing. You could open a door and somebody would sign a contract for AI because they'd never seen anything like it before. But when I look back at those legacy conversations now, 4 years later, they're really pretty laughable. Every lead's treated the same. Every goal is to get you in the door. All we did was take a human who was saying, hey, I got your lead, when can I get you in? And we got machines now doing that. Well, fast forward to today and you look at the quality of the conversational content that the AI can produce, and it's really astonishing. It's transformational because that AI, if it has access to the data, can truly understand who that customer is, and you truly can do one-to-one marketing and communication with them. Visibility through the Navigator tool, that's pretty cool. What gets really cool is when you can onboard the data that are in those legacy systems to your AI platform so that that AI can have a sense of and take care of that knowledge when it's communicating with your customers. I think that's the big problem we're all here to solve. It's not about better tech. It's not about hiring differently in the store, although it is about hiring different in the store. It's about access to the data, and it's about how we're going to connect that data and who the people are that we're going to use. So a lot of dealers deploy AI for SG&A savings. And you know what? That's worthwhile because there are SG&A savings to be had with AI. Your BDC that has constant turnover, you can replace so many of those people with AI that do that mind-numbing work of nurturing that lead that's come in from the internet, right? Humans aren't good at it. The AI will do it forever because the AI doesn't care. What's happening is a transformation of that staff. What we need to start thinking about is who are the people in the dealership that I need to be successful in this AI age. 25 years ago, we thought we had this great innovation of introducing the Internet Sales Manager. Everybody remember an Internet Sales Manager? Come on, everybody remembers an Internet Sales Manager, right? Today, everybody in the store has to be educated about the internet. It's not about an internet sales manager. The sales are internet. The customer is an educated customer. It's just a sale. We still call these phones that we carry around mobile phones. It's just my phone. I've stopped telling people, here's my mobile number. It's just my phone number because it's with me all the time. Well, we haven't gotten there yet with AI. We think about AI as this thing we turn on and it just starts doing stuff. And the reality is the AI doesn't do a very good job unless you staff appropriately. You need somebody who sits in front of that AI all day long, every day, because when human on-the-loop activity comes in, somebody needs to triage that. That activity is coming in because the AI is saying, here's something I can't do, either because I don't have the skill or because you've created guard rules for me that say, don't do this thing. Okay? Well, that AI needs a human partner, someone that's sitting in front of a console that's seeing that activity. Ideally, that's embedded in your CRM system where they're already working, right? It's not about more tools, it's about getting more out of the tools. And that's the fundamental promise of the AI. If you can work with your vendors to onboard the data that their application generates into that single AI brain, then you can get momentum. And look, it's not about a big CDP. The hubris of thinking that a CDP was going to bring all of your data together in one place and you were going to take action on it from that one place, lovely idea. But the reality is if you have 20, 30, 40, 50 different tools out there, rationalizing all of that into a single database doesn't make a lot of sense. What makes a lot of sense are AI agents that are connected through model context protocols that can gain access to that data so when they're about to engage with a customer, they can go look for the information they know about that consumer, wherever it is. Wherever it is. You're not going to get rid of your DMS. You're not going to get rid of your phone switch. You're not going to get rid of your CRM. You're not going to get rid of your telephony products. You're not going to get rid of your iPackets and your MPIs and all of those tools. It's hubris to think that a vendor is going to show up and say they're going to do all of those things for you. If they do, you should show them the door because they're not going to do any of them successfully. But it's not a failure to think that you as a dealer have the power to say to your vendor, I've selected an AI staffing agency with a brain, and that agency, that staff that I have, that silicone employee, needs access to the information that's in your system. And guess what? If you're going to close off that access, that's fine, because there are 9 other companies that do MPI tools, and several of them will provide that data. Or there are 18 other CRM systems that are willing to play in the ecosystem. Or there are, I don't need to go on, you get the point I'm trying to make here, right? It's your data. Your data should be available to your staff. Your staff, whether they are human or they are silicone, should be treated with respect and as first-class citizens in the dealership. That may mean that for some of your software products, Your AI engages just like a human agent. They log in, it's agentic, it pulls a report, it gets the data out, it just does the work that your staff does. What I find tiring in this industry is the closed walls, the walled gardens, the protected data, this belief that if I keep them out, I'm going to become a powerful company as a result of that. AI changes all of that. You can't keep them out. That is hubris. You need to invite them in, because that's how the power happens in your software, because that AI employee who is partnered with humans in the store will get more out of every one of those systems that you have. And yes, again, in that journey, you may identify systems you don't need anymore, and you may get rid of them, and different vendors over time may creep into new spaces, because that's what we all naturally do. But at the end of the day, none of that matters if you're the dealer. What matters is, do I have the right team in place, and does my team, both human and silicone, have access to the data they need to do their job? So let's drive for that. Let's try to make that happen in this industry. So we think about all these new roles that are coming into the dealership. The integrity architect, about knowing the data you have, putting safeguards around it, around limiting what the AI is allowed to do. The lifecycle architect, who is thinking about, what are all the data-driven opportunities to communicate with my customers, and how am I going to unlock them, and how do they rationalize with all of the standard journeys that I have happening? The data strategist, who can mine that data, who can understand who your customer is, who can see trends and identify, and by the way, they'll probably do this assisted by AI, that help them gain edge, gain leverage, gain advantage in the marketplace. I talked about that orchestrator, that person who sits with your AI every day and does the triage of the human-on-the-loop activities. The governance guardian, that individual in your store who's teaching the AI to be an employee. You don't turn this stuff on and expect it just to do. Well, sadly, you do turn it on and just expect it to do, but the reality is it doesn't just do. The reality is every good AI platform out there gives you all kinds of ways to onboard information about who you are, and what your dealership is about, and the role that you play in the community, and how you want to talk about yourself, and how you want to be seen by your consumers. That takes interaction and involvement. You don't hire a salesperson and throw them out on the floor and say, sell cars. You hire a salesperson, you throw them into some training, you hope they watch some videos, you put them in Monday morning meetings, you load their lips, and you let them sell cars. Well, the same thing happens with your AI. You have to teach it. It has to be educated. It has to know what you want to do. So it's not about cutting heads, I said that already. It's about elevating the team. It's about looking at the people you have today and saying, what's a better use in this AI-first world? Where can I put that person that empowers them to do more? How do I partner them with an AI agent that's helping to support their jobs and their tasks? This is the world we're headed to. Okay? This is the world we're headed to. We're all going to have personal AI assistants. Anybody have one right now? A few of them, yeah. Did you build them yourself, or are they off the shelf from somewhere, right? This tech is getting so easy you can build some of this stuff yourself, right? It's pretty amazing what's going on in how our industry is transforming. So like the Cox folks that were just up here, I like to talk a lot about the service lane, because there's so much opportunity in the service lane today. It's a busy department. Service absorption rates are very meaningful, and as we enter this downturn in units sold, the SAR becomes even more important to the health of the dealership. It's probably one of the most complex and fractured software ecosystems in the dealership as well, right? I look at this wheel here, right? All of these steps in the journey that starts with this idea of scheduling. I need to get somebody in for a schedule. Love the suggestion of you sell them the car, you walk them over, and you schedule their first appointment. Love the suggestion even more of creating a digital concierge that you access by voice and handing them a card and saying, anytime you've got a question about servicing your vehicle, call our digital employee who can help you get that scheduled and help take care of that for you. Take those barriers down. Begin to train your customers to use the AI that you're providing to them to do things. Everybody's talking about digital voice assistants right now. I want somebody who answers the phone and handles that customer for me. That interest in that type of product usually originates here in the service lane, where the phone rings into the dealership, it gets transferred into the service department, and in the typical store, 40% of the time, that customer rolls over to a voicemail. That's a lot of loss, and so we throw digital voice assistants at it. Here's what I want to tell you about that. We need to be thoughtful about how we deploy this technology. Think about yourself as a consumer and imagine you called a car dealership and you pressed 2 for service and a digital voice assistant picked up and you ask it a question and it happens to be a question it's not skilled to handle. What's that experience like for you? Right? When we take these DVAs and we attach them to the main IVR and we drive customers there, we're creating bad experiences because we don't have the context for who that customer is. So again, we need to be thoughtful about how do we reinvent our processes? How do we change our dealership? If our customer knows that that DVA does scheduling for them on maintenance, repair, and warranty work, and you've trained them that, well then when they call that number, that's the question they're gonna ask. If they need to know status of the vehicle in their lane, well that's a whole nother process problem. Technology should be able to solve that, right? That's not a hard thing, is it? You know what the hard thing about status updates is? Somebody shout it out. All of these things, it's a fundamental thing. The tech writes it down in notes. It doesn't go into the system. We don't change the statuses as the vehicle's moving through the process. Now, I know there are certain CRM systems that have optimized and taken the friction out of that experience that do it better, DMS systems. But for most shops, that status update information never makes it into a system that an AI could have access to actually be able to answer that question. So before you go deploy a DVA, think for a minute and realize 60% of the time that customer calling my service bay is trying to figure out the status of their car that's in that lane. So if I'm gonna just flip them over to a DVA because my people aren't gonna answer that phone, well that DVA damn well better be skilled to answer the question that the majority of the customers are calling to do. And the reality is it's not, and it's not because the technology can't do it, it's because that system doesn't have access to that set of data to be able to handle that piece of the customer journey. You see the theme I've got here? Access to data. It's all about access to data. So the service lane will transform, and there's transformation happening at every step in this wheel today. Impel, we live right here in the heart of this, in the middle of it. We don't provide menu presentation. We don't do dynamic pricing. We're not a reputation management firm. We don't do buy now, pay later. There are a lot of companies that do those things. Here's the challenge you have as dealers. Every one of the vendors that you select in those categories starts texting and emailing your customers. Every one of them, from their own domains, from their own phone numbers. Where'd your dealership go in that experience? Who are you in that experience? Right? I understand why it evolved that way, but you know what we really need to get to be successful? A single communication orchestration hub. That's what you should be driving to. I heard Cox say it up here on stage too. They weren't as forceful about it as I am. But that single orchestration, that's the part that matters. That's why multiple vendors break down. They break down because 4 people send a follow-up on a trade-in lead that just came in from trade pending. You know what happens when 4 different people send you a follow-up on a trade pending lead that just came into your system? Not to pick on trade pending, put any other brand in there, it doesn't matter. Any lead that comes in, 4 vendors follow up. You know what the problem is? You get sued. Why do you get sued? Because they opt out of that first message that came, or that you never got consent in the first place, and then boom, 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 3 other vendors follow up really quickly, and the customer doesn't say, oh, well, I didn't opt out of that one, and I didn't opt out of that one. They think, I opted out of communications from that dealership. So again, I'm not here to posit that you're gonna reduce vendors, although I believe you will. I'm here to posit that you're gonna get more benefit out of the tools that you use by putting an orchestration engine on top of that. And that orchestration engine comes in the form of AI, of silicone employees, and those silicone employees should be first-class citizens in your store with the human employees that are there, which means that the vendors we work with need to be willing to give those silicone employees usernames and passwords if they're not willing to create model context protocols to be able to access that information. It means those employees need to have a way to get at the data and shouldn't get blocked or excluded. Why is it that every CRM company prohibits third-party vendors from putting browser plugins in? Browser plugin, Cox just talked about the one they've deployed to make their products work together. Why can't every one of your vendors do that? Why do they block that? Why do they make it hard? I'm not picking on Cox either, because they all do it. It's every CRM company. I love seeing what we just saw from Navigator here. What an incredible product. We should be encouraging those types of things. We should be allowing people to have browser plugins that are certified by those CRM and DMS vendors so we know that we can trust them, because those things allow that silicone employee, that AI agent, to gain access to the information they need to be successful. So when you think about this service lane, what you should be thinking about is how do I get more out of this business? I love sitting in a product seat because I get to do a lot of research and look at a lot of research. I was doing some work around dynamic job dispatching into the bays, right? How do we help facilitate processes in that back office space? And what I found really fascinating about it is when you manage those processes and ultimately present payment as a mobile link, loaner car usage goes down by 0.8 of a day. Does that shock anybody as much as it shocked me? That blew me away. That's like making a 20% larger mobile loaner fleet without adding any more vehicles to it. Why does it happen? Because when you've dynamically scheduled and you've moved the car out and it's predictable and you present a payment link, those people who are still at work can pay and they can roll in, and even though the shop is closed, because the RO has been paid and closed, the keys are sitting at the desk and you can walk in and get your car that night and you drop off the loaner car. That's meaningful to your business. These are the types of friction points that we're out there looking for because it's all about the friction. Again, it's not about replacing vendors. We love all the vendors. They all play a critical role. I know that I'm never going to build all of those things. I don't want to. I want people who have best in breed intelligent knowledge to build those things. I want the staff that I provide, the employees, the AI employees I provide, simply to have access. That's the goal. How do we get the data available so that when you orchestrate communications, you know who you're talking to and why? So it's not about point products. It's not about this individual solution. It's not about that piece of the pie. It's about a platform where you've invested. Now the platform becomes really important. Everybody's using AI in their dealerships today? No hands again, come on. People are using AI in their dealerships today. Whether or not you know it, you're using AI in your dealerships because your people certainly are going out and using some of the publicly exposed AI systems to do their job. That should cause you to pause and think for a minute because all of that stuff, all of that data that's proprietary to you ends up in public models when they do that. So think about policies in your store. What you need is a platform that you can go train. What you need is an operating system. Think about the phone you walk around with. It's either got Apple's operating system on it or it's got Google's operating system on it. Apple and Google don't provide all the software that's on the phone. They wouldn't aspire to. Why would they want to do that? Think about Apple, who actually aggressively partners with their competitors because they don't feel threat. They feel like that's a win for their end customers. Let's get it all in here. Let's make it all exposed in one place. Your AA platform needs that kind of access. Your AA platform needs to be trained and taught. You need dedicated people in that store who know who you are and what your business is so that you can teach your AI how to talk in the context of your business. If you're part of a group, you need somebody at the group level who understands how to talk at the group level. And in fact, you also need guardrails that are put in place based on the brands that you work with, right? God forbid that your AI talks about a sale in the Acura channel. What happens to your co-op dollars? What happens to your allocation if you start using discount language in that channel, right? You get the message I have here. This is about a new set of employees, a new staffing model for your store, a transformation in your business that makes the humans better at what they do by empowering them with silicone partners that do a lot of that job for them. And your job is to provide the guide rails and the guard lines for what that silicone employee is allowed to do and when it needs to be handed off to a human. And then your job is the processes that make the human actually take advantage of all of that. So transformation will happen. That device you walk around with, that mobile phone, that is going to become an interaction hub for everything you do. You will have every member of your staff, probably within 3 years, dependent on a device that's in their pocket to know what they're supposed to do next. If you've got a customer who's scheduled an appointment to test drive a car, your porter's going to get a task on their phone that says, go have that car washed and have it out on the line by 1 p.m. so that when Joe comes in at 2, it's ready for him. You're going to have a task in your salesperson's queue that says, Joe's coming in at 2, read his customer profile. He's an important customer to us. It's the 4th car he's bought here. He services regularly, right? When Joe gets here, in fact, there's going to be a task in the general manager's queue that says, Joe's one of your best customers. Go down and say hi to him. How are you going to know he's here? Because in the CRM system, you're going to check him in as in the showroom, and that's going to cause your orchestration tier to go insert a task in that queue for that individual to come down. These are the things you should be thinking about. How is my store going to change? How do I make my people better? What are the tools that I put alongside them? And how am I going to teach and train those tools to do business the way I do business? So I'm super excited about where we are right now. Transformation is happening. It's the very early days of this industry. It's like websites back in 1997 when I stepped into this business. Dealers are already seeing tremendous SG&A savings. Dealers are already improving retention at a rooftop level. Dealers are already lowering the cost per appointment set. These are some average numbers from a subset of our customers that we took a peek into. 4 additional win-back ROs per month. Okay. 5.7 full-time employees equivalent work done by an AI. Okay. 17% increase in first services. In this one, we looked at 2 groups. In fact, several of these data points. A group where we had deployed AI and a control group without AI. In that same period of time, there was a 3% lift for those that didn't use AI. There was a 17% lift for those that were using the AI. Okay. The AI has impact. 29% increase in incremental ROs closed per month in your store. Think about service absorption rates in a down market. All of these things are important. And at the end of the day, 5x higher rate of closed ROs versus the other stores that were in the sample set. The service lane is becoming remarkably important. It's always been important, but anytime there's a downturn in the number of units sold, the service department becomes more important. This is a critical moment. You know, PACCAR, the big trucking company, everybody's familiar with Peterbilt and Kenworth. Service absorption rate in a PACCAR dealership is 105%. 105%. They don't have to sell a single truck and the lights stay on in that business and nobody has to be fired. Any of your dealerships at that level? Should your dealerships be at that level? I think it's the most exciting time in our history. I'm so thrilled to be here. It says I'm at 29 minutes and 8 seconds, so Glenn, I'm going to turn it back to you here. I'm happy to take questions if that's allowed, or I'm happy to just fade right off the edge of the stage. Thank you all very much.